welcome back or welcome to my book channel. And today is the first day of Summerween. And if you don't know what Summerween is, it's a readathon hosted by Gabby Reads. And this is the first year that I am able to do a vlog for it. I started a bookstagram, but this is the first year that I have a booktube. Today is day one, and I started a book last night because I already have the audiobook for it. And I'm one of those families that have the tradition of opening one present on Christmas Eve. So in this case, I opened one book on Summerween Eve, and that book was Sleep Tight by J.H. Markert. So I have the physical copy from my library, and I also have the Chirp audiobook that I am mostly listening to this on audiobook rather than reading physically because I have other physical reads that I have picked for this readathon. But so far, I did not read the synopsis before going into this, and I feel like if you want to experience what this is, you need to go in blind and don't read the synopsis until you're about 25%, which is where I am. I'm about 27%. This cover is very deceiving, I'll point out. It looks like it's a full horror book. It is not a full horror book. It is more of a mystery thriller with darker tones about a serial killer. I would kind of equate it to if you enjoy shows like Criminal Minds. I feel like that is kind of equal to the tone of this mystery thriller, and it does involve a detective, and she gets involved with this case very personally. So we're kind of also, it's both a figuring out this crime and kind of a look into the characters of this too. I feel like by the end, it's also going to be a very character centric plot point, that we have this mystery, but we also have this family dynamic that we're exploring, and the messiness that family can be. And so just know this is a darker tone mystery thriller. It is not a horror. So this cover is very deceiving, but I am enjoying this. It's very fast paced and it's keeping me hooked, and the audiobook is pretty decent for this book. Sorry, I got distracted. I had Jana put her paws on my lap. So that's one of the current books that I am working on today. And the other book I am picking up on my Kindle. My Kindle is not decked out for Summerween. So on my Kindle, I am reading Mort by Terry Pratchett, and that is because in my Winterween vlog, I read Masters of Death by Olivia Blake, and this has a character death in it, so I wanted to see what inspirations she drew from Terry Pratchett's Mort, what inspirations she drew from Terry Pratchett's character of death, and what she kind of did on her own. I am only about 20 pages into that book, and so far I see some similarities, but it's not like exactly the same. But also I feel like this book has a very different, like, it's going to have a very different plot, and this book has, like, death does not show up a lot in this book, so I am interested to find out what Terry Pratchett's character of death is like. I am also enjoying the humor already in this style of writing, so those are the 2 books I'm working on right now, and this is my other physical book read that I have for Summerween. This is One Bad Night, a collection of horror stories from Aardvark Book Box. They published and created their own short story collection that I want to tab each individual story in and know how long specific short stories are, because I kind of want to pick this up here and there in this readathon and not just go straight through each of these stories. I want to spread them out a little bit, and this vlog might end up this vlog may be extended, so I'm gonna do this one vlog, and I think I'm gonna have an extended part 2 to this, because I'm not gonna post this daily like some other people will do, but I want to get to all of the books on my TBR. I will just extend it past when Summerween actually ends on the 9th. I'll let you know how many I got read within the boundaries of actual Summerween. So I hope you'll enjoy this Summerween vlog. It's Summerween day 3. You'll see a firework clip from yesterday, 4th of July. I just didn't really feel like updating, and I just wanted to enjoy the Saturday and finish Sleep Tight by J.H. Markert. And I still stand by what I said previously, where the cover is very deceiving. I think even the title is deceiving in that it's not horror mainly, and I think even on Goodreads, the tag puts horror first, and that's going to lead people into thinking this is going to be a spooky time. It is very mystery thriller. I think it has an issue with pacing, in that I personally was kind of piecing things together around the 50 to 60% mark, and it kind of was too drug out between that point and the maybe 75% of the story, and I think we could have condensed a little bit more. We kind of added a little bit too many things into it that could have been condensed. I think that'll lead some people to get disinterested and maybe DNF before even the ending. I did guess the villain in this, but it's one of those books where it's not in a way that I didn't like, that I could guess it. It was more like there was enough clues to the criminal of the story that it was well written in that aspect, that I personally could start piecing things together and solving it. I do like those types of mystery thrillers where if you hear scratching, it's because Mercy just jumped in a box next to me. But anyway, so I think there's a pacing issue, but I did ultimately enjoy it. It was fast-paced up until that point that I talked about where it's like 60 to 70%, you kind of were like, okay, we kind of have some clues now. Let's pick up the pace, get this solved. But I do also think that we had that lull, and then it was like the ending sequences just kind of then happened so rapidly that it was like that hurry up and finish the book feeling, that to wrap everything up, that I feel like that goes into the pacing issue, that it's like we wrapped it up so fast that then that middle lull that we had kind of made the ending feel so much quicker and almost more abrupt than it needed to be. So I did enjoy this, go into it knowing it's thriller more than horror, and also that it's more of like that Criminal Minds TV show of a darker, more twisted serial killer story. So there's a lot of dark themes in it, and I think Gillian Flynn is also known for her dark thrillers. I think you could kind of equate this book with one of hers, I think, because I think I've read two of hers now, are more darker themes in her thrillers. So this probably would be a good thriller for anyone who enjoys those darker thrillers. So I can check off 3 of the prompts on the prompt list. That's Reading in the Dark, author I haven't read before, and also it was a thriller, so I finished a thriller. I did get a little bit farther in Mort, but I think I'm going to switch gears a little bit because, especially with these readathons, I need kind of a quicker paced story. I need to get to my pink cover book. I will be picking up Greedy and attempting that one, and that one. So I have 2 on my TBR in case Greedy is more horror, and if I just don't feel like either the content is too much for me or I just am not feeling it, I'm going to move on to The Oyster Did It, and I'll explain. It's a cozy mystery. I'll explain that series a little bit more because I've been reading this series for a while now, and it's a good cozy mystery island themed series. I am going to move on to Greedy on my e-reader, but for my audiobook, I am going to pick up a cozy mystery, which is why I'm starting with Greedy instead of my other cozy mystery. Otherwise I might get plot points mixed up while reading those. So I am picking up Beaches, Bungalows, and Burglaries. That's going to be in my audiobook. It's also going to fit the prompt of less than 250 pages. So I'm picking up that cozy mystery on audiobook. So I have an audiobook going during this readathon too. And I'm going to enjoy the rest of my Sunday, and I will update you tomorrow with Summerween Day It's
4.
Summerween day 4, and I wanted to check in for my beaches, bungalows, and burglaries. I always forget this title. So I am about 78% into the audiobook for this, and it's your basic cozy mystery. However, the cover is deceiving on this one as well because it has palm trees around the camper that's on the cover, and this actually takes place in Kentucky at a around a basically a campground with a lake. So the beach is basically a lakeside beach and not necessarily a ocean beach. So that's one thing deceiving about this cover. However, it is a very intriguing, different cozy mystery than what is like the usual premise of a cozy mystery, because she's not going, our main character, she isn't going back to her hometown or anything. She inherited this campground from her now ex-husband in his will, and there's a lot with her ex-husband that is prompting her to want to fix up this campsite and make this small town better, because her husband was involved in a Ponzi scheme and did this town dirty basically, and she wants to make up for what her ex-husband did. And then while she's checking out this campground that she inherited, her ex-husband's body mysteriously ends up in the lake. So she's going to try and solve his murder, since a lot of people are blaming her as like the scorned ex-wife for this murder. And so she's solving that. But that is my check-in with that audiobook, and I will finish that up today and come back with a full review probably tomorrow. And I also started reading my pink cover book, and that would be Greedy. I've only gotten maybe 20-ish pages into that as well, and so far I'm intrigued and wanting to continue reading this. So the premise is we follow Edward, and he originally is from the UK, but he married a woman, a Japanese woman, so now he lives in Japan, and he's wrapped up in some debts with the Yakuza, which is basically the Japanese mafia, and he got addicted to gambling and then ended up doing more illegal gambling with the Yakuza, and so now they're wanting him to pay back his debts, but he does not have the money, he doesn't have a job. His wife has a job at a coffee shop, but he has been hiding this debt from his wife and just saying he is job searching. So he's in deep debt, and he comes across a newspaper ad for a job where you are a chef for a high society person, and it's kind of an odd newspaper listing because it says you have to sign an NDA before you even go to the interview, and your interview is going to be basically you have to cook 3 meals for the person, and they'll tell you if you get the job, kind of thing. But you have to sign an NDA, and so that's kind of suspicious. So There's something weird about this chef job that Edward really, really needs the money from. So that's where I am in this book so far, and I'm enjoying it. And so far, it hasn't put me off content-wise because I'm not too far into it. So that's my check-in for Summerween Day 4. It is Summerween Day 5. I have finished Beaches, Bungalos, and Burglaries by Tanya Caps or Capes. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, but I have finished my less than 250 page cozy mystery. I actually really enjoyed this. It did follow kind of the same thing you get with cozy mysteries. I, however, was actually surprised by the actual killer in this. There were so many red herrings to who it could have been that I kind of didn't have the person on my radar as far as trying to solve it in my own head. It wasn't like a out of nowhere pick for the actual murderer, but it was done in, like, the red herrings were done in a way that I kind of didn't even think about this person. So I'd say this is a pretty well written cozy mystery. Despite the title saying there were burglaries, it's not really about a burglary. It's besides the Ponzi scheme that the ex-husband of May had going, there really isn't any burglaries that really happen, even though the title says that. Just like having the palm trees gives it more of like a ocean tropical vibe. It's in Kentucky on a lakeside beach at a lake campground, and it's not set in a coastal town. So there's a few things that throw you off with the cover, but I would say this is a fun, cozy mystery to pick up if you want kind of like lake vibes. If you're maybe a person who doesn't live near a beach and your beach is actually a lakeside beach or going camping, I think this is a good summer cozy mystery to pick up. I would actually continue the series and pick up the next book. May is the name of the main character. I blinked on her name in the previous clip, so I just didn't say it. But she kind of has this story of going from riches to rags after she divorced her husband because she lived the elegant, privileged lifestyle, and she kind of comes back down to earth with getting this campground and having to fix it up and seeing all these people that her ex-husband wronged. And so she has kind of that type of story. So she is a likable main character. She marries young to an older gentleman that has a lot of money, and she actually falls in love with him. She gets called a gold digger and that she only married him for his money, but she actually does fall in love with him. And it's kind of that story of just going back to your roots after living this high lifestyle and getting used to it, and then being brought back down to earth. And now she's solving mysteries. So it was an enjoyable, cozy mystery for my 250 page prompt. And I am still working on Greedy for my pink covered book. And I'm gonna try and get that done by Thursday, which is the end of Summerween. So I have 3 more days to get that read with my eyes because there is no audiobook that I can pick up for that. So that'll be my final book for this vlog, and I have decided that I'm gonna extend Summerween past the 9 days. I'll finish all the prompts for this vlog, but I'm now in my mood reading phase of picking up cozy mysteries and mystery thrillers and those spooky books. So I'm going to finish out Mort and The Oyster Did It with next week's vlog. But as far as Greedy goes, I'm not too much more into it. Edward has finally met up and is doing the interview with this highest society lady and learning her backstory of how she also is from the UK and also married a Japanese man and was left his fortune and left his basically inheritance and stuff after his passing. She is kind of an odd character so far. There was one scene that he cuts his finger with the potato peeler, and she basically sucks the blood from his finger randomly, and so it's kind of just awkward and weird. That was the only instance of being like, okay, this lady is definitely different. There's just some little quirky things happening already, and I did not read the synopsis in full before going into this, so I'm going in mostly blind, enjoying my time so far, and we'll see what Edward gets wrapped up in, and I will check in with you tomorrow with how much farther I get in Greedy. It is Summerween day 6. I am 50% into Greedy, and it is now getting pretty weird in an unsettling way. We have a lot of instances of the current employees of Hazeline, which is the high society lady that Edward is being the chef for, that many of these employees are warning Edward that he can leave now before he gets in too in deep, basically, and he kind of shrugs it off a little, like they're acting just weird about this ominous warning for him to leave. At least one of them has told him why the whole purpose for him being a driver for Hazeline, that he has a wife who's in like critical condition healthcare wise, and so Hazeline has the money and connections to get the health care that his wife needs. Hazeline provides her driver with this as his extra benefit to working for her and asking no questions, and he also said he had to sign an NDA. So I think a lot of the things that they are trying to warn Edward about, they specifically signed the NDA that they can't specifically say anything. Otherwise, they'll lose the current job position. That's one thing that's kind of getting a little weird. But Edward he seems to like kind of shrug it off because he really needs this job. The Yakuza get notified that Edward has this new job that's paying well. So they are pressuring him more to get their payments sooner. He still has the Yakuza debt that he's dealing with, so he doesn't want to leave this new job. He also is still very much into the addiction of gambling, so he does gamble away some of his new money, his new earnings, away on a horse race, and doesn't feel good about it, but in the moment, that was his basically temptation and addiction to, on his phone, put in money to that. Obviously, it's really, I think, easy nowadays to get in that trap of gambling on your phone. So I completely see how he could fall into that when he already was physically going to gambling dens. To have it on your phone, then that's even more of temptation and ease of access to that addiction. He's also seeing and hearing very strange things while at work, and I'm not going to go in more to that for spoiler reasons. So I personally am kind of making guesses as to what Hazeline is actually doing, and I think it's like a black market-esque type of dealings. I think I can guess specifically what it might be, but once again, spoilers, I don't want to give you my thoughts on that. It is making this very fun and intriguing to experience this and be the smarter person, because I think with a lot of thrillers, the main character, you kind of sometimes have that, like, he feels so stupid to be in this situation, but you can kind of see why he is in this situation and not leaving this really bad situation, that you're seeing all the red flags for this situation outside of the fact, but he doesn't see them. So that's another interesting aspect. And so far, it's like a buildup of dread. I wouldn't say there's too many like super grotesque or like gross descriptions. It does list in the synopsis, if you are vegetarian, this is not a book for you, and I would agree with that. Because if you cannot handle descriptions of butchered animals for food, this does give a lot of not super in-depth descriptions to these slaughtered animals or how they're slaughtered or anything, but it does give descriptions of dead animals for the purpose of cooking. So there's no like butchering descriptions of it so far, but just know if you're kind of sensitive to hearing about dead animals, you maybe don't want to pick this one up, because there's a lot around like preparing the meat-filled meals and just the different type of exotic animals that Hazeline seems to enjoy eating and tasting, but I am having a good time at the 50% mark. So this definitely doesn't look like a DNF for any content purposes. It also, like, oddly gives like some historical context to Japan that I hadn't heard of before for some things. So there's kind of like little tidbits of Japan history in this, which is kind of fun. I am enjoying Greedy. We'll see. I want to finish this up by today, so that tomorrow I can focus on the short stories of One Bad Night, because I have not picked that up at all. I tabbed out each story, but I haven't picked it up, and I know I mentioned that at the beginning, so I at least want to try and pick that up in this readathon week. I will come back to you with my thoughts once I finish Greedy, and that's probably going to be tomorrow's update. It is the final day of Summerween, and I finished Greedy this morning. From the 70% mark until the end was crazy. I needed a couple hours to let it sit, and this actually is a 5-star, so I saved the best for last. I was partially correct in my guessing, but I wasn't completely guessing the full extent of what we find out by the end of this book. And this is one of those books that I need someone to pick as like a horror book club read, because I feel like there's so much to dissect with it that a discussion around it with spoilers is kind of needed. Like, I want someone else to read this book so that I can be like, what did you think about this thing? Just the different layers that this book has that brings out like a commentary aspect, but a commentary in a way of not telling you what to think, but getting you to think about the things brought up in this, and different things from addiction to temptation to like moral values, and how from person to person they can be different, but also how a person can dismiss things or make excuses for their actions to make themselves feel like, oh, well, I'm actually not that bad. This book definitely surprised me. It's not a horror book that leans into like grotesque imagery. It leans into more of the psychological, like, oh, this is bad, this is horrible. Like, it doesn't need to describe every detail to you because it's already something terrible. It doesn't need to be gross in descriptions or anything. But like I said before, if you are a vegetarian or if you can't handle the descriptions of slaughtered animals for food, it does kind of lean into that a little bit. It does give some description to that if you're a person who can't, or who is a little sensitive to how meat is prepared, you may want to pass on this book. But I definitely think that Edward had this like blissful ignorance to his situation, and there is that constant like, why are you being so dumb, for the reader to be like, why are you staying in this job? But I think if you dissected his character a little bit, I think you could see why he stays in this situation, has the motive to do so. This is just, I'm going to be thinking about this book for a long time, and that's actually why I am probably not going to get to this in this vlog, so I'm sorry, but I will probably pick this up tonight. But since it is the final day of Summerween, I want this vlog out tomorrow, so you'll have to stay tuned if you wanted to hear my thoughts on Aardvark's special publication of these short stories. And you will also have to stay tuned for The Oyster Did It, and also, if for those of you wanting me to read Mort, I also will be picking that up soon too. So that will be explained in my next vlog. So I'll put up my TBR that I had at the beginning of Summerween, and I got to Sleep Tight. I also read Beaches, Bungalos, and Burglaries for my 250-page book. I read Greedy for my pink on the cover book. So out of the 6 that I had on my TBR for this readathon, I finished half, and I'm happy with that. I hope you enjoyed this Summerween vlog. I have started to do a lot more vlogs on this channel, so if you did enjoy my style of reading vlogs, please subscribe. And also please subscribe if any of the books I didn't get to this week you want to see me read. And please leave a like on this video, and I hope to see everyone in the next video.